coming to recover your body. Like a job that's so dangerous.
My dad
there's
did
no
that.
point in
He
saving
did that
you.
for like 25 fucking years. He's got like missing fingers and shit.
Yeah.
He's got like a third of his tooth are just fucked because half of it was him being drunk. Because one time he had smashed his whole mouth on like a guardrail of a boat because like he was like kind of intoxicated and the ships were lined up, so he was jumping from boat to boat like across front to them, and like one of the it was like fucking icy as shit, so he like landed on the railing and like his foot slipped and they just mashed his entire mouth on there. Fucked up his lips and shit. And then his hand, it was funny too, his famous injury is like his hand's like permanently, well, they won't be able to see it, but it's like the left, like the pointing finger and the middle finger are like kind of
like
curled.
arthritis.
Yeah, but like they're permanently curled like this.
Yeah.
Because he was telling the story how he had a new guy on the boat, and like time is fucking money there. You have to be fast. And so like the new guy, it was his like first or second day, and so they had to grind up bait in a grinder, and so he was taking his time, being safe. And so my dad's like, "You fucking piece of shit, you gotta go faster." And so he pushes him out of the way and he starts throwing the fucking thing in, and his glove gets sucked into the grinder, and like he fucking pulls it out, and he said it described like shredded up raw chicken, like the back, all the skin was like fucking flopping and everything. There's blood everywhere, and then he had to get helied out to her.
God.
And then they paid, and it was like $200,000 for like reconstruction of his hand and shit.
Yeah, my grandmother had the same. My grandmother on my dad's side had the same thing. She used to work at like a food processing place, and it was like cheese processing or whatever. It was like a, they shred giant blocks of cheese. But she got her fingers stuck in one of the grinders once, and they couldn't get her hand back out.
Yeah.
So they had to bring it to the ER, and the surgeon said that was the first time that he ever had to use construction tools to do an operation, because they just had to disassemble the thing because they can't just pull her out. They could amputate, but not while she's got a fucking grinder attached to her hand.
Lose your hand,
right?
But the funny thing about the reconstruction of my dad's hand is that they had to switch the nerves from one of the fingers to the other so that he can feel, but they are backwards. So what happens is that you can touch one of the fingers and the other one will feel it.
It's weird.
Yeah, so he used to like burn one of the fingers, and then like he could feel the pain in the not being burnt finger.
So weird. That's so weird how nerves work. You can just like, cause yeah,
your brain is connected one way, but the actual nerves are connected the opposite way.
Yeah, it's so weird that because your brain interprets that, because it knows the nervous system, so it knows like all the nerves that are in here are in this finger, and it's not like we can actually like feel pain. It's just that like when something hits it, and we're like, oh, we should probably
not
remove
do that.
our hand there, and the pain is just like that's a reminder that we should.
I'm very aware that something's wrong.
Yeah, but that was one of the, because I don't want to lose any of my fingers, but I am so interested in the feeling of like the phantom fingers.
Yeah,
or whatever.
where you'll think you'll still feel the finger even though it's not there.
Yeah, because my grandma's talked about that, how she can like it feels like her fingers are still there. Sometimes, like she knows, but sometimes she'll touch the nub and it's weird to like to have your thumb like right here on your finger. Yeah, nerves are so fucking weird.
I wanted to be a hand surgeon when I was a bit younger because I still do. I think the hands are like the fucking coolest, most intricate part of the entire human body because there's so much shit in the hand.
Bones just fucking dumbfounded. He's like,
what? The fucking hand?
Yeah, the hand. Like, I don't know. You use your hands all the fucking time. It's the most the most intricate bit, I think, in terms of like the construction of muscle and bone and nervous system, I think, is the fucking hand.
I mean, it is kind of the reason that we've been able to make it this
anything.
far. To make it
this
far
makes
as
sense,
people,
I guess.
because of the opposable thumb. Like, that was the one thing that like gave the ability to grip something with something other than our mouth was like the biggest biological advancement ever.
But just hearing the sentence, I think the hand is like the coolest part of the body. It's just
Well,
like
like it's so
what? Just hearing that like
the
on its
muscles,
own.
the
Like,
tendons.
I know.
what do you mean?
I know it's weird, but like once you think about it, it's like we've got these 10 little like tentacles that come off of our fingers.
Yeah,
or
but
they
they're
come
like
off of
they
our
get
hands.
fucking
Like,
their own separate bones.
I'm
and then
still
they
not
got, like,
completely convinced, but
I don't know. They're just really fucking.
well, I don't know,
intricate and
Bone. What's the
complex.
coolest part of the body to you?
Brain.
Okay, I thought you was gonna say penis.
My dick.
that was
My
literally
cock.
when I was going through that in my head. I was like, what do I think is the coolest thing in a part of the body? And instantly my head went to penis. I'm like, well, actually not.
Okay, let's get real. Let's
The
be
brain.
real.
But thanks,
Yeah.
brain, for thinking.
I guess that only makes it more interesting.
The
That's the
brain
first thing.
thinks the penis is the most interesting thing. But I think the most interesting is the brain. So does that make the penis the most interesting thing?
Which head are you thinking with?
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. Is just the brain in general, because thinking about like do human beings have like a soul? Which is kind of a weird question for an atheist to ask.
What?
But hang on a minute. I'm gonna explain. So the reason being, the reason it's such an interesting question to me, especially being an atheist, because it's like, well, everything in our body is controlled by our brain. Like, our consciousness should be in the brain, right? Like, this is who we are. But we fight with it constantly. We're always fighting with our brains and our instincts and everything. So it kind of makes me think that there's like something separate from here that's causing it to fight with itself.
Maybe it's, I don't know. I would argue that the theory would be like it's an evolutionary like benefit to argue with yourself. So like you could have like a more enhanced like look into logic of your decisions that you're making.
You're not
Because instead
you're
of
not
just
using the same
instinctively
logic.
doing shit and not
You're not
thinking
using-
about it.
You're arguing with logic that your ancestors created 100,000 years ago.
Right.
Because you don't need to think about, is there a wolf
Is there-
over there?
oh,
yeah.
like that gut feeling that you get all the time. Like nowadays, like in certain situations of nowadays, like having a gut feeling is good. But like arguing with like, oh,
Is this necessary?
Yeah.
is it necessary to know this? Because we're not
worry
fighting
about
this
wolves
right now.
anymore.
Right. I guess it's part of what makes us, I guess, higher than most other beings, is that we think like that. And it's not to say that other animals don't.
They're just like, well, better be safe than sorry, as the animals
Yeah, because it's
go.
weird to see, especially
Because if you don't know something as an animal, you probably
You
die.
die.
well, even especially with because it's not as true with wild animals, but it's more true with domesticated animals. They no longer have to worry about finding food. They no longer have to worry about predators. That
They
they
just
kind of
don't know how to do it.
Yeah, they don't. Well, they don't know how to do it. But the more interesting thing is they kind of develop almost like a personality with it.
Yeah,
like
they're
they almost
able to have-
they replace that survival instinct with having a personality. They like certain foods. They don't like certain foods. They have certain behaviors.
Well, generally, it's because their anatomy requires those nutrients. Like
Right.
dogs and cats, they have to eat meat. They can have a bit of grain, but if they have like too much grain, it's not good for them.
Yeah.
They'll probably not live as long as they probably should. If you give your animals like whole like meat and stuff, like
Yeah.
you give your dogs beef and whatever, it'll be better for them.
Right.
Or like when our Great Dane was growing up, we put cottage cheese in their food just because it helps the Great Dane grow, because they go from being like a small medium dog to
one of the
being
biggest
like
fucking
40
dogs.
pounds to being
Those
like
fuckers
In a
180
very
pounds.
short amount of time.
You grow like
Oh
140
my
pounds in like 2 years.
Yeah. Like quintuple your fucking size.
Yeah,
in a
you
fucking
get huge.
year.
You need like that extra like lactose that you wouldn't usually get from normal dog food.
Right.
You give them that extra stuff, because like that's what they would probably keep getting from like their I guess mom's milk from
I guess so.
being a
yeah.
puppy.
Pupper.
That would, because there's kind of been a related to the milk thing, because it's well it's because it is
Related to the
interesting.
milk?
Talking about milk.
Look,
Ladies and gentlemen, I really don't
I've had
think
this
so.
idea going going on about milk.
Let it not be said that we don't have interesting
I think
topics
the
here.
conservatives rely too much on milk.
But there was a thing, and I think it came from Adam Ruins Everything. So I'm a little sketched out to say it because I'm like, I know not everything that they say is completely.
Majority
factual.
of what we're saying is bullshit.
I know the majority.
It's all thoughts, not facts.
I know-
There's no facts in what we're saying generally,
I know
so
it's
nothing
just
should be
opinion.
taken seriously.
I know, but if I'm going to say something that I think is factual, then I want to at least make it clear that this is where it's coming from, and that like it's not just coming out of my ass. This is
Cite
coming
your
from
source.
someone else. Yeah,
Almost everything I've said is out of my ass.
yeah. But anyways,
Like it came from somewhere with good intentions, but probably with not the right background.
right. But anyways, the thing was like, is cow milk does it actually give us calcium? Because the thing is, we're not supposed to drink cow milk. We're supposed to drink human milk, and even then, we're only supposed to drink human milk for so long before we get neutered off of it.
We're only supposed to drink our mother's milk
Well,
because
yeah,
that gives
okay.
us.
I guess more specific.
That is the one thing you can live off for your entire life is your mother's milk because it has all the nutrients you need to live.
I guess
That is the
yeah,
exact
okay, that makes
exact
sense.
nutrients for your body is your mother's milk.
I wonder.
Dev, you want to go try it out?
No, no.
We'll go live.
Mommy!
We'll go live off of your mother's milk
No.
for 1 month, and we'll see who dies.
No, not what I was going for. My
You milk drinker.
No. My thought was, would because you know because we're all different. Even if we're siblings, we're all vastly different human beings. But if your mother gave birth to someone else, would the chemical like construction of the milk be suited just for that infant now, and it's no longer suited for you?
I think it's on a base like genetic because everything that your mother has, every antibody, every genetic, everything from the sperm, egg, everything comes from your mother and your father, and majority of it from your mother. So if your mother has antibodies for a certain disease, that gets passed down to the kid.
Okay.
So her body already knows the makeup that it needs to give it because it should be the same thing that
Okay.
she should.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
similar thing to what she can be able to live off of. Because we're not eating exactly what we need every single day as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It doesn't have to be exactly perfect.
Yeah.
That lovely college diet.
Very, very close is
Yeah.
what I would assume it to be. Not perfect.
Yeah, that's part. I guess it's really interesting. The human body itself is really interesting because we are vastly different from any other animal on this planet. The fact that we've innovated as much as we have up to this point, and the fact that we have such a broad diet that we can eat. Like most dogs, like they have like very strict diets. You can eat certain kinds of meat. Like, or my lizard over there, he can't eat meat. He has to eat bug meat. Like I can't just like give him a fucking steak because it doesn't have because that's not what he normally eats. He eats like insects and grass or not grass, but other plants and shit that grow in the desert.
Perfect to be an omnivore.
But it's weird because humans can. We can eat chocolate.
We can eat bugs. We
Yeah,
can
we
eat
can eat
plants.
bugs. We can eat just about anything. We can eat certain kinds of poison in certain amounts and still be perfectly fine. But then I guess we can also compare it because there's deer that eat certain berries that are poisonous to us for whatever reason. I haven't looked into it.
It's
but
just certain.
Organism.
It's just the chemical makeup of how plants defend themselves is
Yeah.
things like poison.
Because
Spices.
they want to be eaten so that, like, the seeds, because that's how most fruit go, is that the reason why they're so damn sweet is they have the seeds on them, so that when they get passed through the tract, they will get shit out. And then there's seeds still. And so they get planted as their shit.
so why are some like poisonous? Is that just is that because it's a poison, or is it just because it's not good for our body?
I think it would be the
We're
latter.
just not.
We're just not designed.
Yeah,
to,
we're just not designed to eat it because we don't.
It's
normally...
poisonous to us.
I watched a video on spices on why food is spicy, like why jalapeno is spicy.
Yeah.
Well, what's the point of a food being spicy?
I would
Like,
argue
what
natural defense. I would.
It is a natural defense. So up in colder like spicy food, it only pops up like around the equator, so like India or Mexico or something.
Right.
But like up in the like say Scandinavia, Russia, or Canada, if you're living up there and you have some extra food, that's not going to go bad. It's cold. You just
Yeah.
like leave your food somewhere in a secure area where it's cold and it's
Oh
not
yeah,
gonna go
the
bad.
preservatives, the
But
spice.
spices, like if you're in like India or something and you have some meat, that's gonna go bad very quickly. So a natural way that they found it was the preservatives in random food like peppers or whatever.
Yeah.
You put it on the food and it preserves your food. It'll like dry it out and
Huh.
it'll keep it nice and good for a while. And I believe it's spicy for the same reason food is sweet.